will fly through tapes very, very quickly. Obviously, read the chapter. There's some good material in here, but as discussed last week, it really isn't relevant to you. So I'll just try to pick out a couple of highlights. What we've got here then is, oops, the slideshow is, now, tape devices and the media management layer, MML, media management layer. That's what Oracle calls a tape library. Now, RMAN can't write to it. You have to have media management software, as Oracle calls it, provided by your hardware vendor, and you will pay for it. How much you pay depends on your hardware vendor. So what this means is that if, say, I used to do a lot of work with IBM. There's blue blood in my veins. Deep down inside, I'm an IBM man. And IBM nowadays, their hierarchical storage manager, it's all done with their Tivoli storage manager system. And if you've invested $500,000 in an IBM Tivoli storage manager, you'll probably invest a few dollars more in the Oracle tape interface, the media management layer. Now, RMAN can't possibly control the tape library itself because there's so many different bits of hardware around and they've all got their own APIs. So what happens is you will install on your Oracle server the media management client, and that's the client in an IBM environment. That will be your Tivoli server. Your Tivoli server has zillions of disks and SSDs and tapes and all the rest of it, and incredibly expensive and sophisticated equipment. And then on each of your servers in your environment, you'll install the Tivoli client. That's not enough though. You also need to install the media management layer, which is the link into Oracle. And what that is a dynamic link library that you buy from IBM, whoever your hardware vendor is. To install it, we'll see in a moment. It's a dynamic link library or shared object library that lets Oracle talk to the client, that lets Oracle control it. So the Oracle database instance, the software dynamically links the tape library, and that library gives Oracle the ability to talk to the third-party software. The third-party software, the media management client, will then be receiving all the data from RMAN and chucking it across the network using whatever protocols it uses where it gets written to tape. That's the idea. Oracle Secure Backup, nobody uses that. It's an Oracle product that works with basically any tape library. I've never seen anyone using it in a commercial way. The only time when you do use it is with Amazon cloud servers. Amazon S3, the Amazon S3 tape library comes with the Oracle Secure Backup client. I've never seen it used anywhere else. So to install the media management layer, the instructions will come from IBM or from Hewlett-Packard or from whoever it is you bought the tape library from. Typically, you just copy a library into the Oracle home. And then there'll be a bunch of configuration files set up. And of course, you configure the tape library with some sort of tape pool. A point worth noting, the functionality exposed to IBM, it varies. It varies a lot because RMAN can only do to that tape robot what the hardware manufacturer is letting Oracle do to it. For example, a while back I was working at a Hewlett-Packard site, and Hewlett-Packard, HP, wrote a media management layer for Oracle back in the days of Oracle 8i. And they may have changed it by now, but certainly when I was at that site a year or so ago, the Hewlett-Packard had still not updated their tape library, so their media management library. So the shared object library was written for 8i, and it works with release 11, no problem. It works with the database release 11, but all of the RMAN features introduced in release 9, release 10, release 11 are simply not there. It's as though you're using RMAN in release 8, because that's when HP wrote the library. So the functionality you get depends completely on what functionality the hardware vendor has provided, which is worth remembering. Having done that, you install it, and then all you do is allocate a channel of type SBT. Syntactically, you can say type SBT, or type tape, or type SBT tape. Back in release 8, when RMAN first appeared, it was type SBT underscore tape, so that's what I still use. But nowadays, SBT or tape is equally acceptable. So you launch a channel of a certain type. And that just tells RMAN that when the channel launches, the channel will dynamically link the library. And you may need to send a bunch of parameters through to it. You may need to send a whole bunch of parameters through. And that will depend, again, on the hardware. The Hewlett-Packard library I was using, you could only put one file per backup set. You actually had to specify files per set 1, because that was a requirement. But that's all in the documentation that will come with the device. You can change the default device to SBT type. There you see using the old-fashioned syntax. But once you've configured either the default device or previous slide allocated a channel, from then on, the backup commands are identical. Backup table space user is fine, and that's what you'll see. It's identical. So the only change is launching the channel. There's some configuration parameters. For example, default device type SBT type. Auto backup for device type %F, and that will be a platform-specific default for that particular tape library. And there are other things you can set up. There's an example, max set size 10 gigabytes. Maybe your tape library has some limitation on the size of the files it can handle. There's an example of enabling compression for a particular device. There's an example of parallelism. Parallelism is often where you'll find limitations. IBM Tivoli, you can have only 2 channels per tape drive. So if your Tivoli tape robot has 4 tape drives, the maximum parallelism you can have is 8 channels. Try to launch more than 8, errors. So that, again, that's where you may have platform-specific requirements. And there's just some more examples of syntax, what it will actually look like. But otherwise, it's identical. There really is no significant difference at all. There's some wait events. Yeah. It may be difficult to work out where problems occur. And there may or may not be debug options. These NSR directives, you're sending commands to the tape library, or rather not to the library, to the tape client. This is the Legato storage manager, which is now, I think, owned by Symantec. I think Symantec own that nowadays. And that will be how to enable debug logging for the Legato tape library. But again, that will all be platform-specific instructions. Performance, yeah, you've got to consider how many channels. Oracle's advice is 1 channel per tape device. My advice is test. And you will often, in my experience, get far more better performance if you have multiple channels per tape device. Again, at that Hewlett-Packard environment, I tested going 1 channel, 2 channels, 3 channels, 4 channels, and so on. And we found that the backups were fastest with 4 channels per tape device. More than 4 channels, it slowed down. Less than 4 channels, it slowed down. 4 channels seem to be optimal for that particular bit of hardware. But of course, restore times degraded because the tape library is multiplexing the backup sets from multiple channels into 1 device. And that's a matter, again, of more testing. So that's tapes. So if you do find yourself working with some sort of third-party media manager, you are really completely dependent on the third party. But once you've got the tape device, the device driver installed correctly and configured correctly, RMAN will run unchanged. So I said we'd do that quickly, and I have.